Trump. It's kill or be killed. Many are speculating on what is next from Trump. As I write this, Trump is preparing to give tomorrow his first address to the nation on the issue of the border wall that has our factions of government embattled, now on day 18 of the government shutdown, hurting millions of workers across America. So, what will Trump do in the future? Actually, we have a tool to help us predict with some accuracy how he will behave in the future. And that tool is the highly accurate personality typing system called the Enneagram. In this system, Trump is a type 8, also called the challenger or the dominator. Powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. That is Trump to a T. The Enneagram says that all the types, there are 9 of them, are necessary to humanity, and each type can fall into a range of healthy, average, or unhealthy. Trump is a very unhealthy 8, and the 8's basic perspective is it is a kill or be killed world. Unhealthy 8s like Trump truly believe that pretty much everyone, including you, is probably out to kill him, so he'd better kill you first, at least metaphorically. Unhealthy 8s look at life like this: I must control my environment with as much force as necessary, or else I risk being destroyed myself. And since my very survival is at stake, any level of force from me is completely justified. Unhealthy 8s usually try to ensure what they see as their survival through outright, naked domination of others. They can see no other way. The 8's basic fear is of being harmed or controlled by others. Trump has shown that this is indeed his fear because he cannot work well with others. He is terrified that if he allows anyone any possibility of influence over him, it will somehow destroy him. He wants to be in charge. He wants to make every decision. The opinions of his team of staff members literally mean nothing to him. He does not work well with others, and we can never expect him to. 8s have enormous willpower and physical vitality. They almost literally suck up all the air in a room. And they actually feel most alive when they are exercising their powerful capacities in the world. Now, most normal people have some level of concern about offending others, but unhealthy 8s are utterly unconcerned with offending others. And in fact, they can thrive on it. They feel energized and enlivened by it. The unhealthy 8 refuses to give in to any kind of social convention. What might embarrass the normal person doesn't faze him in the slightest. What the average person might fear to do when considering consequences will never concern a Trump type 8 at all. He feels a steely determination to do what he wants to do in the moment. He disdains social conventions, and what you think matters not at all to him. So, an unhealthy 8 like Trump has neither the capacity for nor an interest in diplomacy. He sees diplomacy as pure weakness. Dominate, dominate, dominate is the unhealthy 8's mantra. He will continue to very happily, very comfortably offend other world leaders, because coming up against others is literally when this type feels most alive and powerful. Many are horrified by the things he says, but offending others doesn't bother the 8 at all. The only type of person the 8 respects is that one who will stand up to his remarks and to his behaviors. Those he feels might be as strong as he perceives himself to be, which is why he has such a crush on Putin and why he comes out publicly in admiration of ruthless, murdering leaders like Duterte. Anyone who won't face him with equal measures of attempts at domination, he feels perfectly free to crush without mercy, in words and, if he can get away with it, in deeds. 8s are, more than any other type, the most comfortable standing alone. They desperately want to be independent, and so they resist any idea of interdependence, any idea of working with others, any concept of compromise. We can expect that Trump will never learn to compromise to get along, and we can absolutely be assured that he will never work with the leaders of other countries or institutions in any way, because for Trump, needing others is weakness. The weakest people of our nation, actually of every nation, find this confident strongman type very attractive because they mistakenly believe that his apparent strength can somehow protect them and keep them safe, when actually the very opposite is true. The unhealthy 8 believes that the only solution to every problem is his own ego domination of the situation, which in this complex world cannot keep anyone safe, and in fact could propel us into a global war from which there is no return. When we were fighting with rocks, a Neolithic Trump may have worked on some level some 10,000 years ago in a tribe of 100 people. But these aggressive tactics cannot keep us safe in the modern world. Many have said that Trump must be under great stress with all the negative press about him, but they don't understand his type at all. 8s are extraordinarily tough, both physically and mentally, and they can absorb levels of stress that would kill you and me. The pressure he is under, this is just everyday normal battle mode reality for the unhealthy 8. But 8s are secretly afraid of being hurt emotionally, and the unhealthy 8 like Trump will do their best to keep people at an emotional distance to prevent themselves from being hurt. They will not let themselves be vulnerable before others, any others. Those who want to be close to Trump, probably the women he has married, inevitably become very unhappy with his emotional distance. And believe it or not, Trump finds their unhappiness completely baffling. He feels that he has worked so hard to do the right thing, to be successful, to make money, and now everyone is unhappy with him. He can make no sense of this at all. This causes him to feel very misunderstood. And so he responds by trying to distance himself even more in a futile effort to protect himself further. Because they secretly fear they will be rejected, divorced, humiliated, criticized, fired, or harmed in some way, unhealthy 8s attempt to defend themselves by rejecting others first. And the result is that average 8s become increasingly blocked in their ability to love, or even just to connect with people in a normal way, since both love and connection seems to them to allow the other person some kind of power over them, which of course reawakens his basic fear. The more 8s attempt to protect themselves by building up their ego, the more sensitive they become to any real or imaginary slight, to their self-respect, their authority, their preeminence. The more they attempt to make themselves impervious to hurt or pain, whether that be physical or emotional, the more they shut down emotionally and become hardened and rock-like. We can expect Trump to become more and more brittle emotionally as things go along. A few years ago, Trump was probably at what is called a level 5 for an 8. At this level, Trump was doing his best to dominate his environment. His primary feeling was that he wanted others to be behind him, supporting his efforts. He was swaggering, boastful, forceful, and expansive. He was the boss whose word was law. He was proud, egocentric, and wanted to impose his vision on everything. And he was unable to see anyone as an equal. It has only gotten worse. Why did he wish to throw his hat into the ring in the presidential run? The U.S. president is commonly called leader of the free world. Trump did not see the American presidency as a way by which he could work with others to guide and improve the world, to make the world better. That never entered his mind. And in fact, he saw it almost opposite to that. Trump saw the position of American president as, for him, simply the next logical step in arriving at the ultimate dominator position from which he could exercise the maximum amount of power with the minimum number of constraints. He did not understand at all what it means to be a leader of a country. By the time Trump had become president, he had degenerated probably to a level 6, highly combative, using intimidation to get his way. In the past year, 2018, he has indeed become even more confrontational, belligerent, and not only willing to engage in adversarial relationships, but actually seeking them, looking forward to them. For him now, in his unhealthy and degenerating 8 state, everything is now a test of wills, and he will never, if he can help it, back down, because backing down means defeat, and defeat to him equates to his personal death. The level 6-8 uses threats and reprisals to enforce obedience from others. And he sees keeping others off balance and insecure as a perfectly viable means of managing personnel. Unfortunately for him, however, the unjust treatment that he dishes out daily makes others fear and resent him and encourages them to band together against him. But what Trump and other unhealthy 8s are blind to is that if you alienate everyone associated with you, you will eventually be forced to employ only the most obsequious and untrustworthy people, because those become the only kind of people willing to work under these terrible conditions. No one honorable will agree to be your staffer, your employee, or your advisor. And so we see the weekly firings of people at all levels at the White House and beyond. Trump's White House has seen more firings, resignations, and reassignments of top staffers than any other first-year administration in modern history. His cabinet turnover exceeds that of any other administration in the last 100 years. But Trump doesn't care. He had a TV show where his favorite line was, "You're fired." Such an unhealthy 8. He may not care, but Trump is unwittingly building a very dangerous cadre of ex-employees and staffers who will be happy to stab him in the back at the first opportunity, to spill every terrible thing they know as soon as it is to their advantage, and to attempt any revenge they can get, now or later. Trump is too blind to be worried, but he should actually be very afraid for what is coming. Trump's idea that he can operate as a powerful, single, self-sufficient person with no need for allies is his complete ego illusion, an illusion that always comes crashing down eventually for every unhealthy 8. So, what can we expect from Trump in the near future? Well, how 8s handle normal levels of stress is exactly what we have seen for the last 2 years. 8s get aggressive with their opinions. They become angry and blaming. They deny their responsibility. As 8s become more and more embattled, they become even more ruthless and dictatorial, believing more and more that their personal might makes right. Descending to level 7, Trump will exhibit more and more tendencies to engage in outright criminal behavior. He will feel himself to have been forced into the position of outlaw or renegade, and he will actually in some ways relish this. He will become ever more hard-hearted, immoral, and potentially very violent in his decisions.
The third group, I'll be a little more violent. And the fourth group, I'll say, get the hell out of here!
Rough up, maybe he should have been roughed up, because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. Do you know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Guards are very gentle with him. He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. In the good old days, they'd rip him out of that seat so fast. Yeah, get him out. Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. Well, then he'll lie. I say, what do you do? He lied.
Do you believe that you've done anything to create a tone where this kind of violence would be encouraged?
I hope not. I truly hope not. We have to be politically correct. Oh, please don't hurt them. They're allowed to get up and interrupt us horribly, and we have to be very, very gentle, very gentle. They can swing, they can hit people, but if we hit them back, it's a terrible, terrible thing, right?
You regret saying any of those things, especially the things that you have said about punching protesters, sending them out on stretchers?
No, I don't regret it at all. Some of these protesters were violent. Yeah, I'm not happy about that, and I would always express my feelings about that.
If he is not removed from his position by election, by impeachment, or by sickness, which is actually unlikely for 8s, they stay healthy under far greater levels of stress than most people. So if he is not taken out of his position, we will doubtless see him degrade into a level 8 for an 8, ever more delusional about his power, his invincibility, and his ability to prevail over every challenge, no matter from how many. He will descend into megalomania, and in this he will feel literally omnipotent and invulnerable, able to see reality less and less. He will become more and more reckless, overextending himself in ways that will shock the world. Now, it probably won't come to this because Trump will probably be stopped before this point. But if he were to continue on his unhealthy 8 path, here's what would happen. Here's the very worst that happens to unhealthy 8s. Here's who they become. If they feel in danger, they are perfectly capable of attempting to brutally destroy everything that refuses to conform to their ego will. He will never, ever surrender. He could become barbaric and murderous in his vengefulness. If it comes to this, those closest to him should attempt to get away safely. He will then be at the level of certain so-called third world dictators like Idi Amin, Pol Pot, and others who commit all sorts of crime and mayhem as their way of controlling their world by fear. There is one other possibility. In the Enneagram system, there is something called a stress point, meaning each type can behave like another type when under great stress. As we have discussed, 8s handle stress just great usually. They respond to stress by taking problems and challenges head on. They are bold and assertive in pushing for control and for accomplishing whatever their vision is. But this approach can leave them feeling beleaguered and overwhelmed. When stress levels get too high, and 8s start to realize that their normal gunfighter stance is not working, it is possible for an 8 to suddenly switch tactics and go into periods of retreat or even isolation to strategize and to see how they can regain control. They may become strangely quiet, secretive, and isolated as they privately explore ways to deal with their problems. Under longer periods of stress, they may also develop a cold, cynical attitude about themselves, about other people, about life in general. So, we will either see Trump become blatantly brutal, or we will see him go quiet, secretive, and isolated. He'll stop tweeting so much, and everyone will wonder what's up with him. Obviously, most of us would prefer the latter, but we'll see. This overview gives you an insight into Trump's unhealthy mind. He is really a frightened little boy who is terrified that someone is going to control him, to hurt him, to destroy his life. Imagine how he grew up. Imagine with what brutality he grew up to have him come to believe this. We may have, and we should have, compassion for Trump, but a man this unstable and unhealthy emotionally should never be permitted to run a country, much less be leader of the free world. The sooner he is out, the better.
We need stable, psychologically healthy people as our leaders. People who realize their job is to seek the greatest good for the greatest number of not just Americans, but of all people. The day of us versus them is over. We are one planet. We need leaders who understand that. Let's put them in office as soon as possible.